Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday night edition of The People Show on intellectualradio.com, iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I'm Mark Wallace, your host and facilitator, right here with you every Monday night. We look forward to sharing all of the latest news, political news, and hopefully that we can offer some solutions to those things that we don't like and some of those problems that we have. And you can call into the program at 951-221-8221. Don't just sit there and think about your responses, but we can certainly take some of your calls. A little bit later on, we're going to be opening up the phone lines. And of course, tonight is Monroe Monday. Monroe Anderson is going to be joining me in just a few minutes. We have a whole lot of things that we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about some of the mayor's accomplishments going into this election cycle. He still has not officially announced whether he is going to be running for a second term as mayor of the city of Chicago, and we hope that will be coming soon. We're also going to be talking about President Donald Trump, which ordered the Pentagon to reduce their joint military actions in South Korea. I'm going to give you more information about that. And there was a monumental rejection at the Supreme Court on the the case with Jean Carroll's case with Donald Trump and the Office of Comptroller. We're going to be talking about what happened with Alexei Giannoulias, and I'm going to be sharing with you why I think that Alexei Giannoulias should never become the mayor of the city of Chicago. And we're going to be talking about those reasons. And I want to share with you on the governor's, my position with the governor. And of course, that consequential bill, the HB 8339, which was the Jesse L. Jackson Sr. Young Voter Empowerment Bill that passed, and the governor signed it without any fanfare. And I want to give you some of my rants about that, as well as the what happened in the Trump organization, where they are now have been given permission, I guess, to start their own bank. The first time that it has ever happened with a sitting president. So we're going to be talking about all of those things coming up on tonight's program with my guest, co-host, who's going to be here with us momentarily. And of course, you will be able to call in. So I want to certainly give you an opportunity to do that, so you can get ready to call into the program a little bit later on. And make sure you share this and go to our YouTube page on YouTube, and look for The People Show with Mark J. Wallace. And you can register there absolutely free. There is no cost whatsoever to register for this program. We just want you to get engaged, because we have a lot of work to do, and it is beyond time for us to change the way that we have behaved as those of us who are engaged in the political process. And I really mean that, that we've got to get beyond our idiosyncrasies that we have that keeps us from making the kinds of progress and keeps us from solving some of the problems that we have to solve. And I will continue to do that. Now, I've heard all of us at one time or another, we talk about the fact that we must get ourselves aligned together if we are going to make the changes. And in order for us to do that, yeah. in order for us to do that, that means that we have to change our behavior. You and I have to change our behavior if, in fact, we are going to change the very conditions that we see as being conditions that we don't like, and to take control of our political process and our political power. Now, that only happens in one way. Now, that doesn't mean that all of us are going to come together, because there are going to be those people who are not interested really in, and I mean people who look like us. I'm not even talking about people from other ethnic groups, be it Spanish, white, or whatever. But there are people, for whatever reasons that they deem that they will not engage in a cooperative, collective um, um, progress or process, whatever that reason is. I don't think that we should pay a whole lot of attention to that. But I do believe that if we are going to make the kinds of significant progress that we want to make in our communities, it is only going to happen one way. When I say significant one way, that it's only going to happen one way. It's going to happen one way when we take power back from corporations, because many of the people that we have in elective office in the state of Illinois that are Black or white or Hispanic or whatever, many of them are largely controlled by, they're largely controlled by corporations. Corporations control them. What do I mean by corporations control them? What I mean by corporations controlling them, corporations control them to the point that they respond to the corporations. Corporations pour money into their campaign coffers. We don't pour money into their campaign coffers. I don't think that we have to pour money into their campaign coffers. I think what we have to do is we have to organize and pour money into our own campaign coffers, and then we can determine on who people that we want to invest in, that we want to select and elect for public office. That is how you determine power. You determine power based on whether or not you can hurt or you could help a particular person get into office. You do not have power if you cannot determine who sits in the office, who stays in the office, or who leaves the office. If you don't have that kind of power, then you have very little power to influence public policy. It's plain and simple. Politics is about power. There is power that is used in a productive way and in an equitable way. And then there is power that is used in an inequitable way, and it is used in a non-productive way or destructive manner. We want to be able to use power in a very productive, very constructive, and very equitable manner, so that the Black community, when the Black community is elevated in any areas that you know of in terms of having an agrarian society, from education to economics, every other community does better anytime, all the way down through as far back as we can trace and track. When Black people as a whole have done better, whether it's educationally, economically, then other communities do better. So in order for that to happen, you and I we must determine to have power. You are not going to have power because we don't have any one single person, and it shouldn't be any one single person, because we shouldn't have dark money into politics from our side, no more than dark money or money into politics as we see very wealthy people that basically own people who are in public office. Public office is just that. It is supposed to serve the common good of the general public. That's what public policy is supposed to do. And when that our politics and when our government serves those interests, then everybody does better. Everybody has a right to education. Everybody has a right to health care. Everyone has a right to a good paying, livable wage job. And we should make that as essential, and we should make that happen. But we will not make that happen if you and I do not change our behavior as it relates to being engaged. It is not going to change. I don't cut deals individually with people who are in public office. I don't align myself with anybody in public office. I align myself with the public, with the people. We should be aligning ourselves together, and then we make the determination on who it is we're going to hire to serve in positions that will determine public policy for our communities. That is the absolute recipe. If we do not do that, then we cannot expect anything different than what we are getting now. Many of you remember here in Chicago, Cliff Kelly, who used to be he was an alderman here, and he also was a radio host on WVON for many years. And one of the things that he used to always say is that you get the government that you deserve. What does he mean by that? Is that the government that you allowed to go into place and you didn't participate, you didn't engage, you allowed for them to go into place, then you whatever, people who got into office and they have the power, we basically let them do it. So we didn't participate to make sure that our voices were heard as to who we want to have to represent us. We didn't get involved in the strategic building of power and strength so that we could have a significant influence in politics. I don't buy this Chicago machine politics that you can't break it. Harold Washington broke it, and we can break it. And the only way that Harold Washington broke it is he broke it through the electorate. He didn't just break it by himself. He was only as powerful as the number of people behind him and with him. That still stands today. We can break the machine politics. Machine politics is very much alive. How is it alive? Well, we have 20 people who are in the city council, and we have a black mayor, we have a black Cook County board president, we have 6 Cook County board commissioners, 22 state representatives, 10 state senators, and 4 United States congresspeople. Most of them are controlled by the machine. Why? Because corporations largely fund them. They largely govern towards those people who fund them, because we are not participating in that process to where we have the numbers to determine those seats, where then we become the machine. So you and I have to change our mindset, and we have to change our engagement. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. We're going to get into this week's Monday, Monroe Monday. We have a whole lot to cover. And so one of the things that we talked about, and a whole lot of things that's going on the national level, we're going to be talking about the local level in just a little bit. But there's one of this first thing, President Trump ordered the Pentagon to substantially reduced the joint military exercise with South Korea, calling the annual drills expensive and provocative. He cited his good relationship with North Korea leader Kim Jong-un and expressed frustration that Seoul did not support the United States military actions against Iran. And I'm going to bring my co-host in to talk about this first thing. Monroe, welcome. How you doing?
Okay, I'm doing all right.
We got a whole host of things to talk about tonight.
Oh yeah, your president is in meltdown. So yeah, I mean he's in total. With South Korea, which is a communist country, one of the few remaining communist countries. He's buddying up with him. In the meantime, calling the social democrats, which are not communists, using it as a slur term. It's no, and in the meantime, with North Korea, sorry, with South Korea
Right.
is an ally of ours, and he's siding with North Korea, which should be an enemy. It's developing its whole nuclear program, war program, but he's siding with North Korea, which is a horrible person, one of the worst dictators in the world, and he has decided to cancel military operations with South Korea because they didn't back him in Iran. You need a scorecard to figure out what he's doing and why he's doing, and you're still not going to figure out because it's crazy.
Well, I guess the question becomes, how does this impact the entire NATO alliance when you have a president who is unilaterally making these types of decisions when it comes to maintaining peace, so that we don't have to have military operations or combats, or allow regimes like Russia to invade as though they're doing over in Ukraine, although they're losing that battle in Ukraine.
Yeah.
But Ukraine is suffering, as well as Russia, suffering the loss of so many lives in terms of maintaining that, largely because this administration has withheld support for Ukraine. Because if Ukraine had the kind of support that they should have received early on, this war probably would not exist at this point.
Yeah, Putin probably would have declared victory and got out of the war if that was the situation. The biggest winner in all of what Trump is doing now, and what should be our greatest concern, is China. Because all the stupid stuff that Trump is doing as a leader just shows the Chinese that he's incompetent and he's a fool. And in the meantime, China wants Taiwan. Taiwan produces 90% of the state-of-art chips that the rest of the world runs on. And they want Taiwan. And at the rate we're going, we've used up our weapons on Iran. And some of these missiles cost $30 million, and they take a year or more to build. It's insanity. I mean, we are in such a mess. Trump has no way, no plan, no way out of straightening out the strait. So Iran now owns it. They said that it's theirs, and they've and
Right.
20% the oil that the world needs goes through there. So they're gonna charge a fee to get through when it's all done. So they're gonna be way richer than they were
Mhm.
before Trump started his unnecessary war.
Well, some of the reasons that he cited for discontinuing these joint military actions, he said that because one, he cited his personal relationship with North Korea's leader. Then he viewed that the joint war games as too costly. And then expressed his anger over South Korea not joining the operations with Iran because he decided unilaterally to start a conflict with Iran without talking to the other NATO allies, but then wants to dictate and want for them to involve themselves in a war campaign that doesn't have any real strategy. So why
Right,
would they do that? Why would any of them make that determination to go and expend themselves into a situation that doesn't have a plan or a strategy or a winnable solution?
right, exactly. It would be a sucker's bet, and so that
Right, right.
they're not
Now,
going.
but here's a theory. Here's a theory. Is
Okay.
it really for those reasons, or is he doing this because the munitions that are needed in order to carry on the conflict in Iran, he is taking from those resources so that he can continue uh, this endless conflict in Iran?
No, he wants out of the endless conflict in Iran. He first of all, he has a short attention span, so he's already bored with it. Also, he thought that Iran would be like Venezuela, where he could send a few
Right.
planes and bombs in there and take over the country. Uh, and if people, everybody's had told him that you mix in molehills with mountains, and so but he goes and he does it. He doesn't have an exit plan. Uh, what he has done, among the many mistakes he's made, is that the Straits of Hormuz is in fact Iran's nuclear bomb. Uh, they can impact the rest of the world economically anytime they choose by shutting down the straits. And so it's just, uh, and these Republicans who um, spinelessly follow him are going to be um, fired left and right in about 80 days or so during the midterms.
Well, which is certainly something that I think that I said last week in a discussion that even here in Chicago, that people that we know in other places like Kentucky, whether it's in Iowa, or whether it's in Mississippi, whether it's in Georgia or Florida, that we have to make phone calls or send $5 to those campaigns because we have to ensure that we have as strong of gains in the House and hopefully flipping some really critical seats to win 4 seats to take control of the Senate.
Yeah.
Because the the only way that we are going to um, put some control on what is happening, and I think that certainly many of the base, but I think that there are a lot of people that are certainly fed up with what they see going on because they see how it is impacting them. You know, today I was driving around and I noticed something that I had not seen or had not paid much attention to. Gas stations in our communities empty, literally empty of cars. Nobody at the pumps, even pumping $5 or $10 in gas stations. I passed by at least 3 gas stations before it really came to my attention that on really busy roads that normally you see cars at the gas station. I passed by a gas station on 79th and Yates and on 75th and Yates. There was not a single car in line pumping gas. And I
Why do
think
you,
that that bodes to people having to ration to pay for gas. They're not getting as much gas as they would usually get because of the cost of it. You know, gas is $4.49.
right? Are the grocery stores empty too? Because food is very expensive. So
You know, I don't see as many lines in grocery stores as we did before this conflict started.
right,
I think we're seeing a diminution of people. I'm talking about buying necessities, right?
right,
Food and gasoline. I think that people having to ration purchasing those things, so you find fewer people in the stores buying, and you find fewer people at the gas stations pumping gas.
yeah,
Um, and so I'm not sure if that was, but to pass 3 gas stations in 3 different locations that was completely empty. In fact, I thought the gas stations had closed, but they weren't closed because there were
yeah,
people in the C store.
yeah,
There just weren't anybody pumping gas.
right, yeah.
Now I
Um,
don't know if there's any merit to that or not.
oh no, the reason there's going to be a bloodbath for Republicans during the midterms is because everybody except for the very rich, or not even, well, the rich, yeah, the, let's say millionaires and above, um,
Right.
are suffering. I mean, if you're on a paycheck to paycheck budget, then this has had serious challenges for you. You know, if you're rich enough, then it's not a big deal. Uh, you know, except I have money, and when I go to the grocery store, I get mad at the price of it. I can afford to buy this stuff, but it is such an extravagance, and it's a result of Trump's unnecessary war and his crazy tariffs. Those two things alone has really hurt the economy if you're not rich now. My portfolio is up a lot. I'm amazed at how much, but um, the economy is in just totally in bad shape, and people will let it be known. You know, the polls have shown continuously the decline of Trump. He's down in the low 30s now, but as politicians are fond of saying, the only polls that count are the election polls, and they'll see how upset people are when that happens.
Well, I certainly hope that translates into some serious consequences for Republicans because they seem to have completely dug in to being in compliance and enabling Donald Trump to continue doing what he is doing. It
Yeah,
is astonishing. Uh, it is we're witnessing the reality of it, but it is nonetheless astonishing that we have three co-equal branches of government that have completely bent the knee to this president.
Well, not all three. The judiciary has not. That's the thing. That's the one guardrail we have left. Uh, they're ruling against a lot of the crazy stuff that Trump wants to do. But it's
Well, the judiciary, but you're talking about the federal judiciary, the co-equal branch of government. We're talking about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, at every opportunity that it has, more than not, is giving Donald Trump as much room as they can possibly give him.
yeah,
But yes,
but yeah, but
you know,
they can't possibly give him enough room. Uh, they've ruled in his favor in terms of a president's power being unequaled. They've proved a
right.
lot
Well,
in that, but not completely. And the lower cases,
right.
of course, are ruling against all of this foolish. The Supreme Court um, has been bought and packaged, basically.
Right. I heard a conversation between Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris on this past weekend, and Kamala Harris has pitched the idea that we need to expand the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
They should have expanded the Supreme Court when they had the power and the opportunity to do it, but they did, in my opinion, they made the same mistake that Barack Obama made in trying to have this kumbaya moment with Republicans that care nothing about working together as long as they do not have power.
yeah. See, I don't think they could have done. I don't think Obama could have done it. I don't think Biden could have done it uh, because the political consequences of that. You know, FDR tried to. He padded the Supreme Court briefly, and there was such a reaction to a negative reaction to it that it didn't stick. It didn't stick. Um, if Obama or Biden had done that, then it would have been a bad situation for Democrats. Then, now I think when Democrats get back in charge, uh, come January 20th, that's going to be something that's going to be in play uh, right away. Is reforming, and that's the term we have to use, not padding or, but reforming the Supreme Court, and it can be done because they have been so extremist right wing that I think now the voters have a true understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I think now there certainly is an appetite for voters to do it, and I
Exactly.
think that there's a way to do it, and I think you can take a campaign to the public and start having this campaign around the country saying why we need to reform the Supreme Court so that we can get dark money out and we can get money out of um, this endless amount of money out of politics. That came out of the Supreme Court, the Citizens United decision.
Right.
And the only way that you will get rid of that is that you've got to reform the court. So I think that if you campaign just like you would campaign for any other political office, if you campaign and you take that message straight to the public to educate the public on why it is important and why it's necessary and what can be done as a result of reforming the Supreme Court, I think you could get broad support behind the next administration for expanding the courts.
Yeah, I think you'll be able to do it after January 20th when we get uh, all these people from that we're going to vote for in the midterm. They'll be sworn in beginning of next year, and so you're going to see a power shift dramatic power shift. Uh, it's not going to be campaigned on much before then, because the thing that the average American voter is concerned about right now is uh, how are you going to get the price of gas down? How are you going to get the price of groceries down? Uh, how are we going to get out of this war? And the Epstein files are still a sleeper back there. I mean, there's all kinds of things that Democrats have to campaign on, and so, but I think they should keep it limited to what people are hurting most behind, uh, and that's
Oh, I agree. I think the Democrats has always had, well, I shouldn't say always, but certainly in large parts, the Democrats have always had a messaging problem. But I think that the Democrats have really found their footing on this messaging about the cost, and especially the cost of gas, because that impacts everybody. That impacts everybody except for those who might have electrical vehicles. But
right,
that's only about less than 5% of the population of people who drive vehicles.
right,
But this impacts everybody. This impacts moms. This impacts bus company operators, those in transportation. Everybody feels that pinch.
right, right. And it's not going down. It's not going away until next year. If we're lucky, it'll go away next year. But
Well,
it's
he
everything. Yeah, everything's bottled up.
well he was in you know complete opposition with his own vice president, because his own vice president said the number one thing is to make sure that gas prices are low and that we get to keep the price of gas down. And then Donald Trump came back and said, well, the little bit that you're paying for gas is worth it, so that we can make sure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. So the little bit that you are paying in additional gas, I will not apologize for it. So
Right. Right.
he is definitely in contradiction with his own vice president.
Well, he doesn't even. He's totally clueless as to how much the average American is suffering from all these policies of his. He's isolated. His staff only gives him good news now. Oh, God, what play is that from? Where they sing, "Don't nobody bring me no bad news." Uh, and anyway, that's how his staff is set up now. He has all these sycophants, and they only bring him good news. So he has no idea of how bad things are out here. And of course, the other thing is he's getting filthy rich now. He's made a couple of $1 billion in the years since he's come back into office, and his sons have made more money too. So from his perspective, all is going great.
Well, speaking of the Supreme Court, there was a decision that came this morning from the Supreme Court. They declined his long shot petition to rehear his case, which follows the initial refusal to hear his appeal. But and the court didn't give any explanation, which was typical for their routine orders. The Supreme Court did not provide any explanation for declining to rehear his case, which means that he now has to pony up $83 million plus interest, because he's already given the $5 million plus interest. And he now has to pony up the defamation of $83 million
Yeah,
plus interest, because no other court can hear this case, because the highest court has made its decision.
right. Yeah, it's over now. He's got to give her the money for slandering her. uh, for him it was an ego thing because he's stolen enough money where uh, that 50 million or whatever it is pocket change to him right now. So it's not that he really is hurt by it, but it's just an ego trip.
Yeah, it's the thought of it that anybody would win against him, and the fact that he is tagged with being a sexual predator. So he's tagged with that. That's on his record. Well, not on a criminal record, but certainly on public record that he was found liable for sexual assault.
Yeah, it should have been a criminal record, but it's not. You're right about that. Last week I was in Atlanta at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. And as part of the things going on there, they had the parents of Nolan Wells um, on. They interviewed him live. And
Hmm.
that case is so incredible, And his parents were, his mother was a nurse. I'm not sure what his father did, but they were very, very well educated, very articulate, and they just ran through all the strange things that happened for this boy, 18-year-old boy, to be murdered. I mean, right now, because it's Mississippi, uh, they're saying that he drowned. It was a drowning. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, Blacks have been drowning, hanging in Mississippi uh, for 150 years or more. So um, Attorney Crump is on the case. So we'll see, but it demands investigation.
Yeah, there are a lot of very strange issues with this Nolan Wells case. Of a lot of really unanswered questions, or some answers that seem as though that they're not legitimate when it comes to how in the world that you go out on a boat on an island with a bunch of people, and based on what some of them saying that he wanted to stay behind, and they let him stay behind. It's just it's just very, very strange. Could
Exactly.
it be
No,
possible?
it- yeah, his parents, in talking about him, talked about how he never, the things that they're saying he did was atypical of his behavior. His,
Yeah.
his father, his father talked about how he was seriously into being online. He had TikTok stuff he was doing, etc. He said his father said some mornings he would wake up and his son's cell phone was in his face. He'd tell him, "Boy, get that camera away from my face," because he'd be filming his father sleeping, just as part of what he did. And so for him to disappear and leave his phone behind, uh, it didn't make any it didn't fit any characteristic that would have been what that young man was doing.
Yeah, and wasn't there some? I haven't been following it very closely. I haven't followed very, so I can't really speak to
Yeah,
the
right.
details of it.
Yeah, well, I hadn't until his parents were interviewed in Atlanta at the conference, and it was incredible. It just stuff the that then when you hear all the things he was with these white kids who they had grown up together. This wasn't. I mean, they were friends from like second grade or something like that. They had grown up together, and
Hmm.
he went out on this trip with them, and his mother says that he was an athlete. You know, he was a football player. He was
Right.
a better athlete, and he goes out there and drowns. Uh, they they said no. He he's a good swimmer. He
Well,
wasn't
I
going to be
guess was the question was he a swimmer? I know that he was a football or a star football player for
a good swimmer.
one of the colleges. I can't remember. But
Yeah,
what was he a good swimmer?
his parents said he was a good swimmer. They said he wouldn't have drowned. There's no way he would have drowned.
So, um, did this was he in on the island? Was he on the island? What these
He
are the questions that come up into my mind. You're on a
he
boat with a bunch
yeah,
of people
right, right.
and you get
They
left behind. Are you left behind on the island?
uh but the story managed to change along the way. But he wasn't left behind according to his white friends. He wasn't left behind. He met some girl and decided to stay with her, didn't come back with them for that reason.
Mhm.
And his parents says
Right.
he never would have done that. That just was not his. That wasn't the type of son he was. That was not the type of kid he was. Or and even if in the unlikely event he had done that, he would have notified them that he was going to be on. He wasn't coming home. That he had met some girl or something. But they said that again, he's 18 years old, and an 18-year-old boy who's still being raised, well raised. They were good parents by his parents. Is not going to do anything that crazy. Meet some strange girl and just okay. I'm going to stay here and not tell my parents what's happening. Yeah, no. It's all kinds of
Yeah.
influences in the story.
Yeah, it really sounds like there's a bunch of inconsistencies, and then you have I forget the guy's name. There's I call him a meritorious manumissioner, the influencer that was a former NFL football player. I call him a former NFL failed football player turned police officer turned YouTuber that is you know um, one of the Black MAGA postal child that gets into this beef with DL Hughley
Yeah,
and talking about asking the question, that he's not going to hate white people because black people want for him to hate white people. And I couldn't find anywhere where anybody was hating or asking him or even encouraging him to hate white people, because black people were saying, what happened to this 18-year-old boy who went out on an island on a boat with a bunch of his white friends, and
right,
he just happens to be the one person that gets left behind that happens to drown,
right,
with all these other inconsistencies that ask around. I'm not sure how you conflate that with hating white people when you just want to find out, why did my son die?
right. Well, these right wing black influencers that you have out there, what they're trying to do is make some money. They're trying to get clicks and views and get paid and have an audience. With Candace Owens.
While
Uh,
selling out their own people to do so.
yeah, yeah,
You and I can disagree with each other, but just
right,
because I disagree with you doesn't mean that I'm going to sell out our people, or vice versa.
right,
I'm certainly not going to join the MAGA squad or to
right,
join the Republicans. As I was saying to people last week, there is not a single black person alive that can demonstrate and show any cohesive public policy that went into a resolution by Republicans, taken to the floor for a vote, and put into law to benefit the lifting of Black people from education to economics in 60 years. Not one. And I have been asking the question now for 17 years for those who think that the Republicans are the alternative or the answer for Black people to please bring that to me.
Right. Right. Well,
I'm still waiting. My inbox is still empty.
yeah. I'm so surprised. That's not that. When Nixon kicked off the Southern strategy, that was the beginning
Yes.
where we are now. It's gotten worse and worse
Yes.
and worse. Uh,
Right.
so we have a full blown white supremacy um, action going on now. This whole
Right.
DEI thing that Trump has initiated is misnomered. It's not the right name for it. It's anti-affirmative action. That's what it is.
Well, it not only is it anti-affirmative action, but I think that we should stop giving them a pass and just using the acronym. We really should say it. We should say diversity, equity, and inclusion, because who would be against diversity, equity, and inclusion except for bigot racist? Who would be
Right,
against that?
right, right. Well, except you know, again, the game they're playing right now is DEI is meant to stop discrimination against white people. It's the the reasoning behind that is that affirmative action has helped people of color and therefore hurt white people. It's
Well, but
discriminating.
the facts don't back that up. Diversity,
Well,
equity, and inclusion, as well as affirmative action, has disproportionately helped more white women than it has helped, by and large, more Black people. The facts
okay.
don't bear it out to their argument.
Your problem is that you are talking about facts in an administration, in a movement that has been machine gun rapid lies. Facts don't count.
Right.
Right. It's
But
like,
we still have to put them out. We still have to put them out there for people who may not know the facts.
exactly. Right. And the people
Right.
that are lying, know the facts and are lying to us with a
Right.
straight face, hoping
Right.
that
That we
go
should
for
not believe our lying eyes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Um, Trump has fired more Black women than any administration in the history of the country. He's decapitated Black leaders in the military. They're all gone. He's just fired them willy nilly, or Hegseth has. And it's right now they're trying to do strange things to the Smithsonian Library because it talks about slavery and in a negative way, if you can believe that.
Yeah, it talks about American history, right? About the most violent people on the planet, and certainly the most violent people in this country happen to be white people. When we
Well,
remind them of their history, of the 100 massacres that took place between the Civil War and World War II, by which thousands of Black people were killed by the
yeah,
white terrorists, and the white
right,
terrorists stole thousands and thousands of acres of black people's property. Black
Right.
people have never done that. And black people have never had that kind of desire to do to another group that white people have done. So this idea that black people are more vicious and violent than white people is patently false. And there's no basis to that argument that people like to raise. And if we
Yeah.
are vicious and violent, we had some great teachers.
Well, the thing is, that's I find interesting is that right now white people talk about the riots because of the rebellions, the urban rebellions that happened in the 60s. But historically, the riots have
Where
always
do we
been
learn how to do that from?
right. No, the riots have always been white people who were jealous of black progress, and so they would go into
Yeah,
black towns or find a black businessman or something and lynch him
yeah,
because we're upset because he was too successful. That's how you got Black Wall Street, uh, and that situation, and that's in 1919. They that was called the Red Summer because those types of riots with white people attacking blacks and lynching blacks was going on all across the country. We had an incident here in Chicago, of course, where uh, this black kid um, innocently drifted onto the white part of Lake Michigan, and somebody threw a brick and hit him with it, and he drowned. And black folks were upset naturally, and white folks attacked and had a riot on the south side attacking black folks.
mm-hmm.
And you had
Right.
this in other places across the country within the same year. So what happens is you get these whole let's get back to our roots, white people. Let's get back to our roots of destroying black folks any kind of way we can, and it goes in cycles. And we're in that one now, where
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are now, and I think that the the defense that those that are trying to defend um, the quote unquote good white people and to try to conflate the argument by saying that we are somehow anti-white is to suggest that somebody is very ignorant of history, and they're very ignorant of history being attempted to repeat itself,
right, right,
such as the time that we're in right now. Um, and so, those of us who have certainly educated ourselves on history, American history, as it relates to hate against anybody who was not white,
right,
and then to juxtaposition of then to what we see happening now. We are in that modern day time of which they are certainly trying to repackage and reinstitute that kind of hate, and we should certainly call it out as often as we can, and certainly that we see it. It has nothing to do with being anti-white. I would not waste my precious moments that God has given me to hate another person because they look differently than me. I wouldn't spend my precious energy and health, poisoning my body and my mind and my soul and my spirit with that kind of ignorance. But what I will not do is I will not sit by and watch it happen and pretend that it is not happening.
Yeah. No, we have been in an image war in this country for generations now, with them depicting us negatively and to keep us reined in. And so we're back. It's ongoing. The difference is we have some levers and some power, and so we we can fight back, and we're fighting back.
Yeah, we're fighting back, and I think that, and I really like the way that strategically we are fighting back. You know, I said early on that in this election, this past presidential election, that this is because largely white people put us in this position that we are in, along with a lot of ignorant Hispanic people, along with a lot of ignorant Somalians, along with a lot of ignorant Haitians, that decided that Donald Trump was a better choice and a better fit than Kamala Harris would have been.
Yeah.
So these are people who voted by 80%. When I saw and read the statistics of Somalians that are now being hunted down by this administration, that they voted 80% of Somalians voted for what we have now, and they're being hunted down. In Miami, 60% of the naturalized Haitians voted for Donald Trump. 60%.
Yeah.
And now they're being hated, or not, they're being hunted down by this administration.
Yeah. Karma. Yeah.
I don't understand that kind of pathology.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about, I want to talk about a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Let's, because I'm going to need to cook dinner pretty soon. So let's.
Yeah, I know your time is up, but I want to just talk about one local story before you go.
Okay.
So, Alexi Giannoulias has announced and is spending more money on running for mayor than he is on running to be reelected, because he's going to be reelected as the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
However, I don't believe that Alexi Giannoulias should get anywhere.
There ought to be a law against you being in an office and running for another office at the same time. That's ridiculous. You know, if he wants to be mayor, he should not be running for another office. If he really wants to be mayor, then that's what he should be doing. You know, this is
I think we should start a campaign to have that law change here in the state of Illinois. That if you are running for a general election, that you should not be able to run for another election, another seat. You should not be able to run for two seats at the same time.
Right, exactly. But anyway, you were about to sing his praises, so let's hear it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to sing his praises. Number one, he has a very interesting way. He has a very interesting way of repaying people. So the federal regulator seized Broadway Bank, who was owned by his family, on April 23rd, 2010. The closure happened because of the institution failed to raise more than $85 million in new capital required by the Federal Deposit Insurance after suffering massive losses from high-risk loans that were given by none other than Alexei Janulius, who served as the vice president of real estate lending during the time that he was with the bank. The bank relied heavily on commercial and residential real estate loans. When the financial crisis hit, the property values dropped. Borrowers couldn't pay their loans. The regulators ordered the bank to raise the $85 million of emergency fund, but they were not able to do so. Now, this all happened during the period of time that Alexei was there from 2000 to 2006. He left the bank in 2006. But Alexei had made all of those loans. So he was really responsible for running the bank into ruins, number one. Number two, then he had this institution that he ran with that was called Bright Bar. He ran that into the ground, some sort of non-for-profit organization. I've never been a fan of Alexei Janulius ever, even before I knew about his banking flows. I've never been a fan of him. I don't think he's that bright of a person. Then he runs for Secretary of State. Brandon Johnson endorsed Alexei Janulius over David Moore for Secretary of State. And so his appreciation for doing that is to announce that he is running for mayor with a coffer of $20 million, of which came from his bank that he put into the Byline Bank, which is another bank that is run by family members of his, or they have some sort of significant interest in. So why should we trust Alexei Janulius with the finances of the city of Chicago when he has a record of not being able to manage the finances of a pretty big institution?
Did you ask why? Was that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Easy peasy. That's because he's the new great white hope. They want the fifth floor back. And they think they can get it. It looks like with all that money he has, and with Mayor Brandon not even announced yet, and with no money almost, it looks like that's going to happen. It's inevitable. That's what it's looking like.
I don't think that is I don't think that it's inevitable. I think that Brandon Johnson, when he first announced, he was polling at about 2% in the polls, and I think to a large degree that when we talk about Brandon Johnson, in terms of him, I don't know if he's going to announce. I don't know if he's going to announce. I hope that he announces, because to talk about Brandon Johnson's, I think to a large degree that there are people who, and I'm not here suggesting that I'm endorsing Brandon Johnson. I'm just simply, comparing the two. Alexei Janulius would, in my judgment and by his record, put us in a worse state than we are now.
Yeah.
Listen, we are seeing record lows in violent crimes, even though crime has ticked up a little bit here in Chicago, but we're still far lower than what we've seen in previous years. The
Right.
works that
Back in
Brandon
the,
Johnson has done.
back in the 90s, Chicago was referred to as Beirut on the lake. There was so much violence.
Right, right. I mean, I remember one year we had more than 900 murders.
Right,
900 murders.
right, right,
And
right.
even during the tenure of Mayor Daley, during the tenure of Rahm Emanuel, we had high numbers of murders, 5, 6, 700. But during their tenure, we seem to be very silent about crime and its and the violent when Mayor Daley and Rahm Emanuel was ripping apart our infrastructure and the resources of the city.
Yeah, and closing schools. Yeah, they,
Right, right. All right. I know that you got to go and you got to cook dinner. And we didn't get a chance to cover everything. We're going to be doing a town hall on this Thursday night on the TIF grift, and why TIFs have become something that is disproportionately inequitable for our communities. We're going to give $640 million to some very wealthy groups downtown, while we are taking millions of dollars out of our community. So we're going to be doing a town hall on this Thursday at the Wilson Library at 5:00. Tom Tresser is going to go through the TIFs, and we're going to demonstrate a real TIF in the 21st Ward of how that is a program that was brought in by Harold Washington that has been completely bastardized to use for every reason other than what it was brought in for.
Right, right. Yeah. Oh, God. It's the more things change, the more things remain the same. So, yeah.
All right.
Okay. So uh, we have a battle to do still. We'll be up and at it. But in the
All right.
meantime,
We certainly do.
my stomach is talking to me, so I better go figure out.
All right.
Okay.
Go cook dinner.
Great. Well, I think
All right,
I'm
folks.
just. I'm in Chicago, some of the best pizza in the world. So I think I'm going to do that. But we'll see.
Hey,
But I
don't
eat.
rub it in. I can't eat pizza anymore.
What? Why not?
I can't eat pizza anymore. My doctor is taking me off of pizza, and I can't eat spaghetti because for some reason, what is in the sauce caused for me to have that elongated hoarseness that I had. And so he said that I can no longer have it. No pizza and if I eat pizza, I can't eat it with pizza sauce. And I certainly can't have any spaghetti.
Well, spaghetti, I don't care that much. I don't care about spaghetti, but pizza.
Well, spaghetti was my favorite meal.
Yeah, see, I don't care about spaghetti, but if a doctor told me I couldn't have pizza, you know what I do? Get a second opinion.
Look, I was going to go get a second opinion, but guess what? When I stopped eating it, and when I stopped eating it, my throat started getting better. So there was no need for me to go get a second opinion.
Oh, this is red sauce, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to have you over to the house one night to have my pesto pizza, green sauce.
Pesto. What is pesto pizza?
Pesto is with the green, pesto, the green stuff, the chopped up basil.
Okay.
And so instead
as long as you have now, you probably put cheese on your pizza, right?
Oh yeah. You have to have cheese on a pizza.
Okay, so you'll have to have part of it with cheese and part of it without, because I can't eat cheese either.
No, my cheese on there is goat cheese. You can't have goat cheese or just uh, cow or
I can't
just.
have any kind of cheese.
Oh, I think you ought to go raw.
So
What you ought to do. So you know, anything cooked, you just have raw vegetables. Then you'll be healthy, not necessarily happy. Anyway, okay. Well, I'm gonna go go get
all
some
right.
pizza. All right. Talk to you later. Okay. Bye.
All right. Talk to you later. All right, folks. That's Monroe Anderson for another edition of Monroe Mondays with me here every other week. Hey, listen, we started to talk about Mayor Brandon Johnson's record. So I want to go through some of the things that Mayor Brandon Johnson has accomplished in the first 3 years of his first term. Now, there is nobody, whether it's I don't care who it is going to fix the decades of erosion and the decades of bad decisions in 4 years or 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or 8 years. But if they have a record of working towards bringing equity, that's what you ought to look at. Look at the person's real record. Don't get caught up. Please don't get caught up in the what is the fodder of the conversation of people hating on migrants and hating on immigrants and then hating on the mayor because he had to deal with the immigrants. He's the mayor of the city of Chicago, and his first and primary responsibility to every citizen is to keep us safe, and not to have dealt with that situation, of keeping us safe would have been an abdication of his primary fiduciary responsibility. That is what the mayor's responsibility is. I'm going to open the phone lines up. So if you all want to call in, I'm going to open the phone lines up so that you can call in. You want to chime in on anything that you have heard. I certainly will welcome you there. So I'm going to open up the phone lines so that you all can tune in. The telephone number is 951-221 8221. So I'm just going to open the phone lines, and then you will be able to chime in with me. And so let's open up the phone line so you all can call in and be a part of the conversation. Now, be a part of the conversation so that you can be a part of the solution. All right? That's what we have to do. Be a part of that conversation. And those of you who have followed me for a number of years know that I like to talk about things on a factual basis. I don't like to talk about things just on somebody's feelings, what you feel, where you hear people say, well, I feel this way. Your feelings are not thoughts. Your feelings are not facts, and your thoughts are not the truth. Only the facts are the facts, and the truth is the truth. All right. So, look, I'd like for you all to join me. Call me at 951 221 8221. And I'll be happy to take your calls. Now, I want to talk about Brandon Johnson's record. Let's talk about those things, right? So since taking office in May of 2023, Brandon Johnson has advanced a progressive agenda focused on labor rights, housing reforms, and youth investment. while navigating through public safety challenges and economic development initiatives, as well as navigating through the migrant situation. Labor and workers. The tipped wage elimination. Remember, he spearheaded the legislative that pushed to phase out the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers across Chicago, meaning people who work in food accommodation, restaurants, and normally restaurants pay waiters and waitresses a very, very low wage, and then because they say, well, you largely more of your money off of tips. Well, nobody should be working a job and making less than a livable wage. And this ideology that if you're paying people a livable wage, it's somehow going to run people out of business. Well, I am a business person. I operate a business, and I fundamentally do not believe that people should be working and not earning a livable wage. And if you have a business, and this is my never to be humble opinion, and if you have a business where you are not able to pay people a livable wage, maybe you should reconsider your business model. Just maybe. So I just believe that if you have people who are working with you and people who are working for you and they're helping you to build wealth, those people should participate in that wealth building, because you need workers to help you build whatever that wealth is. That is a fundamental philosophy that I believe in. That is the fundamental philosophy that Ben Cohen, and they believed in when they built Ben and Jerry's, that no senior executive would earn more than 7 times that of the lowest paid worker. So if that person's wages went up, if the executive wages went up, then everybody else came along and they participated in it. You know what? They were at a very successful company where they did very, very well. Both of them has done very well. And they were able to live along with them, or the workers along with them. The same thing with a place called Costco. Costco is the same way. Costco family members said, look, our family can live very well off of $300 million. We share the rest of that with our employees and our associates. So the average person who works for Costco earns not less than $30,000 or $35,000 a year. I don't care what their position is. So those are the kinds of models. And I believe that you can still do well. You can still do very well, and then bringing people with you. People like Warren Buffett and the people who are doing very well as those companies, they have people on their staff that are very bright in their employee that they're paying very, very well because those people have helped them to become as wealthy as they have. So I want to talk about Brandon's record. So in case you don't know what Brandon's record is, I want to share with you what his record is. And I will take Brandon Johnson light years over ever supporting Alexi Giannoulias for mayor of the city of Chicago. And it is very strange to me. No, it's not very strange. I shouldn't say that. I understand the concept of meritorious manumissions. And many of you have seen the post that I put what I call meritorious manumissions here in Chicago during the last municipal election of all of these Black representatives, alderpersons, state reps that endorsed Paul Wallace without even talking to their constituents. And I put them on a flyer so that people will know who these people were that supported a person that would have been antithetical to our community based on his past record. He was responsible for more than 800 Black teachers being fired. He was responsible for the kickoff of closing schools that Rahm Emanuel continued on steroids. That was Paul Vallas. And you had people who look like you and I that were serving in political office that endorsed him. You had 9 black alder persons who signed a letter to supporting the Rahm Emanuel being chose as the ambassador to Japan. The same man who hid and lied about hiding the tape of the murder of Laquan McDonald. So just because somebody is in our same skin does not mean that they really are concerned about the equity and interest of our communities. And anytime that I learn about that, I am going to let you know who they are. So what I am saying is, don't get caught up in the fodder. Don't get caught up in the noise. Make sure that you have the facts so that you can make an informed decision on which direction that you would lean towards. But I can categorically tell you that Alexi Giannoulias, just because he has $20 million in his campaign coffers, and you see him demonstrating to you right before our very eyes, he is demonstrating his lack of commitment. Here is a person who is running, literally running for 2 offices at the same time. This is a person who committed that he was going to be committed to being a great Secretary of State. Then he announces, after he's won the primary, that he is going to run as the mayor of the city of Chicago. And every campaign that you see him running now, ad that he sees running now, is about him running for mayor. And then right down in the center of that is you have one of who I refer to as a meritorious manumission, Alderwoman Michelle Harris of the 8th Ward, is somebody who I think that you all should replace as alderperson of that ward. You probably won't do it, but I think that's one of the reasons why I think it's so important for us to build our own independent voting block all across. But I want to talk about that a little bit later. So let me just get into Brandon Johnson's record. Again, talking about how he spearheaded, legislatively pushed to phase out the sub-minimum wage for tip workers across Chicago. He passed the paid leave expansion, established an expansive paid time off and paid leave statute for workers in the city of Chicago. Housing and Development cut the red tape initiative, advanced over 100 developmental and zoning reforms to streamline commercial and residential building process. I know about that and certainly have benefited from that and seeing others to doing that. And certainly we thank Hal Hutchison, who is who runs the building department at the city of Chicago. Reducing the municipal land use and zoning decisions timelines to drastically reform. The parking minimum reforms eliminated or reduced minimum parking requirements at construction costs and encouraged dense housing development. Housing investment. He secured more than $1.25 billion into affordable housing and economic development bond framework to support local communities. This is just a start. Official Community Safety created the new office to shift toward a multi-layered approach to violence prevention. Youth employment, expanded youth summer jobs program, significantly scaling up annual placements to tens of thousands of local youths, which is some of the violent crime reports that we see. Mental health services, reopen city operated mental health clinics as part of the administration's public and health and safety strategy. That's just some of the things that Brandon Johnson has been able to accomplish during his first tenure as mayor of the city of Chicago. So Alexi Giannoulias, this is his records. Federal regulators seized the Broadway Bank owned by the family of Alexi Giannoulias on April 23rd, 2010. The closure happened because the institution fails to $85 million in new capital required by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp after suffering massive losses from risky real estate loans during the economic downturn. The bank relied heavily on commercial and residential real estate loans. When the financial crisis hit, property values dropped and borrowers could not pay back their loans. Why couldn't they pay back their loans? Because they were making what we call air loans. They were making loans to somebody who just had a pulse but did not have the wherewithal to pay those loans. And what they would do is that they would package those loans, they would fund those loans, and then they would bundle them, and then they would sell them off to the secondary market to some other sucker that didn't know that they were buying air loans. Well, it caught up with the bank. So the regulators ordered that the bank secure an $85 million emergency funding, but the family could not raise the money. Their poor risk practices. All of this happened under the time and tenure that Alexi Giannoulias was with the bank. These failures came after he left the bank, but all the damage had already been done by him in making these risky loans. Federal investigators cited weak credit risk management, which means that the bank was not able to meet its obligation, and they had very, very high risk loans out there, which lowered their credit risk. Out of territory lending in states like New York and Florida, and problematic investments. Controversial loans, the bank faced scrutiny and later a federal FDIC lawsuit for approving tens of millions of dollars in risky or questionable loans, including transactions tied to the convicted felon Tony Resco. Alexi Giannoulias served as vice president and senior loan officer at the bank until 2006, before he became Illinois state treasurer. During his 2010 United States Senate campaign, Giannoulias defended his record, stating was healthy when he left the bank, that the collapse was driven by unprecedented economic recession. Critics and opponents argued that poor management and the reckless lending during his tenure contributed to heavily to the failed institution. Now, look, he can try to suggest all he wants to that the bank was healthy during the time that he was there. Well, he made the loans during the time that he was there, but those same loans started to fail after he left. So the damage was already done by Alexi Giannoulias before he left the bank. So of course the bank was healthy in his view when he left the bank, because he had just made those loans, and those loans didn't start to misperform until he left the institution. So this is the same person who wants for us to trust him with the city's finances and with the city's budget. And I heard Monroe suggest earlier that he is the great white hope. That may be so. So I saw somebody who had posted on Facebook that asking the question if he was the golden boy. And I said, well, certainly not in my view that he's not the golden boy. He might be the golden boy for somebody who wants to control him, and those corporatists that wants to have somebody else other than Brandon Johnson in the mayor's office. So that's what that would be. Precisely what that would be. And so the idea that he could use his $20 million and go out and make these fancy campaign ads and put a few black people sprinkled throughout the crowds and throughout the audience, so that he could try to conflate and confuse some people who would think, well, you know, he's got a bunch of black people there that's behind him, supporting him. That may be that he has, a few. I don't know whether he has that kind of support, but I don't want for us or anybody to be fooled by who Alexi Janulius is. He's a complete failure, and he would certainly not be someone who I would trust with the city coffers. So the other thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about something that I thought was significant. There was a bill. There was a bill that was brought into fruition by Dr. Joanne Roberts and others who worked for 18 months. It only took 18 months to pass HB 4339, which creates a very important pathway for eligible Illinois high school students to register to vote before graduating. So the law is the Jesse Lewis Jackson Young Voter Empowerment Bill. And the bill passed the House and the Senate, and the bill there should have been a large public signing of this bill with many young people who were flanking the governor about this bill. And the governor should have talked about the importance of such a consequential piece of legislation. So this is a legislation that is now law that allows for 98 graduating high school students, 98,000, because that's about what comes out of the Chicago public schools. And of that 98,000, about 70% of them are African-American young boys and girls. And they can not only leave high school with their diplomas, they could also leave high school with their voter registration card. That's what this law is. That's what this bill is. And Dr. Joanne Roberts, along with Devorah Crable and others, participated in this bill passed. And the governor so dismissively did not do a public signing of this bill, did not even acknowledge publicly or mention it publicly. Not one time. And so we view this as a complete insult to young people, that such a consequential piece of legislation where Jesse Jackson Sr., the late Jesse Jackson Sr., who loved to go and talk with young people and loved to encourage young people to get involved in the process, and this bill being passed. Historically, and as consequential of a person as Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. was, that Governor J.B. Pritzker would not hold a public signing of this bill, in my view and in my judgment and others, was a complete show of disrespect for Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr., as well as for young boys and girls. That he doesn't care about young people, doesn't care about young people getting engaged, being informed about participating in this democratic process. That's what that exemplified. His lack of it. And this is a person who may want to run for president. I don't know if he wants to run for president at all. There are plenty of people who are suggesting that he wants to be president. I'm very concerned about that. Now, we have to vote for him during this election. I'm not suggesting that we play this zero-sum game. We have to vote for him during this election. But that doesn't mean that we cannot hold him accountable, that we cannot question the veracity of the decisions that he makes as it relates to the Black community. And I don't want to hear this obfuscation of talking about that he did this, and because you did that, that somehow it is okay that you don't do the other. It takes both, and that we should be requiring for anybody who is representing us in a public office. And I am calling on everyone. We may end up doing a press conference. We may end up doing a press conference calling for Governor Pritzker to do a public recognition and signing of the Jesse Lewis Jackson Young Voter Empowerment Bill, because that should have been done in the very first place. It should have been done in the very first place. Is that that should have happened. So we're going to be calling for the governor to do that, and we should not give him a pass on doing it. Yes, we strategically, yes, we have to re-elect the governor. We cannot allow for Darren Bailey to become the governor of the state of Illinois. We just simply cannot do it. We cannot allow that to happen. Darren Bailey should never become the governor of the state of Illinois. So therefore, we have to support J.B. Pritzker. But just because we support J.B. Pritzker does not mean that we cannot hold J.B. Pritzker accountable. We can absolutely hold J.B. Pritzker accountable, and we're going to hold him accountable. You know, we're going to do that. So stay tuned for that. We talked about, and we also talked. Okay, so so earlier I was talking to you about having a cooperative, collaborative engagement in this political process. And I'm going to close us out tonight reiterating that. And I'm going to continue to reiterate that. Oh, by the way, tune in for my special podcast coming up on this Wednesday night, which is the 19th, Wednesday night at 7:00. I'm going to be talking with Reverend Anthony Akram from Miami, the Richmond Heights, West Perrine community. Anthony Akram is one of the associate ministers at my home church, SBC Miami, Second Baptist Church of Richmond Heights, which was there by John Ferguson, who I will always consider my birth pastor and who shaped me. And the church is now being led by Alfonso Jackson Sr., who's been there now, I think, about 20 or 25 years. But I'm going to be doing a special podcast with Reverend Anthony Akram and Tukey on this coming Wednesday night. And we're going to be talking about what's going on down in Miami with the Black community and why it is that community that we lived in, a community that was built and developed for Black military veterans in 1954, by a man by the name of Frank C. Crawford, who was a retired Air Force pilot who got a grant, bought some land, and built homes in the community where I grew up at. Now, we never learned about that in school. They never taught us about it. We went to the school that was named after Frank C. Martin, but they never taught us who Frank C. Martin was, or never taught us why the school was called Frank C. Martin. And we never asked. We didn't ask. We saw the signs and the plaques sitting on the wall, but we never asked. I found out that the community that I was raised in was a community that was literally on purpose built by a white retired Air Force pilot that bought this land, got this grant, and built these homes for middle class military Black veterans. That's why the town was all Black. And it was a town that was always in the top 10 voting precincts in the country. It was a town that had the lowest level of crime of any Black community across the country. It was always one of the top 10 vote turnout communities. And so to see what has happened now, because the town has become more diverse. There's more South Americans that have moved in there ever since Hurricane Andrew hit 1994. A lot of the people decided to move on, move out, or sell their properties. And South Americans saw an opportunity and they started buying these homes. And so our community is a bit diverse. However, there have been some things that have been going on in Richmond Heights and West Perrine and other places like North Miami and Liberty City and Overtown. And we're going to have a conversation about that in hopes that we are the Black community in Miami, whether it's North Miami, South Miami, to organize themselves together, just as we are trying to do here, because it is vitally important that we understand that our success is going to be determined by our own willingness to cooperate and to organize ourselves together. Our success and failure is not going to be given by somebody else. It's just not. Our success and failure or progress is going to be based upon our willingness to be strategic. And to be strategic and to have the power to operate a strategy, the first strategy is we have got to build and have a large swath of our own voting union collective together, that we can have our own internal process of determining candidates, getting those candidates slated, getting them on the ballot, and then getting them elected. Here in Chicago and Cook County, we have very high numbers of registered Black voters, as well as potential voters that will soon age in to be registered to vote. So no matter where you are, if you have a cooperative, disciplined strategy to work together and not allow for yourselves to be separated or divided, you will be able to impact the political process in ways that you have never seen or imagined. But that will not happen if, in fact, we do not organize. It is really that simple. If we do not organize so that we can load up, so that we can uh, make a declaration, and that declaration comes into fruition. Why? Because we have the numbers to do it. So I'm going to have this special conversation on Wednesday night. So make sure you tune in for that program on Wednesday night at 7:00. And I'm going to be talking with Anthony Akram from Miami. And then, of course, we're going to be talking with another one of the Black public officials from North Miami. And we're going to talk about it. We're just going to be chopping it up on what is the state of my hometown and communities across Miami, the same way that I have that conversation here, because I believe fundamentally. You can have all of the stories that you want to have. You can have all of this, right? You can have all of the information. You can have all of that. But if with this, you don't have a strategy, if you're trying to impact public policy, if you're trying to send a message, you have to have power to do so. And in Chicago, we certainly have the access to that power. And the reason why we have the access to that power is because we have the numbers to draw from. Think about this. We have 20 Black representatives in the city council, a Black mayor, a Black Cook County board president, 6 Cook County commissioners, 22 Black state representatives, 10 state senators, 4 United States Congress representatives, a Black lieutenant governor, Black superintendent of police, a Black city treasurer. We have about 80 Black judges. We have 17 Black mayors in the southern suburbs. We have more than 193 Black elected officials in this state, more than any other state in the union. We have more than 1.5 million Black registered voters in all of Cook County. In Chicago alone, we have more than 662 Black registered voters and another 150,000 eligible Black registered voters. With that number, no one can win a citywide, countywide, statewide, or federal office without getting the plurality of the Black vote, period. You cannot do it. So that being the fact that they cannot do it, then you and I should and must control the power that is available to us and take that power back, because, and the reason why I'm saying take it back is because there's somebody else who's manipulating that power. How are they manipulating that power? By having us fractionize and having us work as individuals. You hear me say all the time, individualism is a toxic cancer for our communities. And as long as they can keep us fractionized and as long as they can keep us disconnected, they maintain power and control. At the moment that we decide to become organized, the moment that we decide that we are going to be a collaborative, then we will at that point determine to take our power back. And guess what happens then? What happens then is this. We take out of that 1.5 million, maybe more than 1.5 million registered voters, currently registered, notwithstanding those 150,000 that are eligible to be registered. If we take 1/3 of that 150,000, 500,000 people to become a part of the independent voting bloc, 10 by 10 to win is an independent political action committee. The focus is building our own independent Black voting bloc. If we were to take 1/3 of the registered Black voters, we would determine every election from our local municipalities, mayor, county, at the county level, mayor, county level, in our suburban communities, at the mayor and trustees or alderperson level, at the state level, state representatives, state senators, at the federal level, congressional candidates, as well as our senatorial candidates, and our governors races, because no one can win without the plurality of the Black vote that comes out of Cook County. That is the facts. Those are the facts. I'm asking you to be a part of building the first ever Black independent voting bloc in the country. There never has been one. We have never been organized, which is why it's probably so complicated to get us to change the way that we are thinking towards this process, towards this objective. Because if we build that independent voting bloc, you will have every person who is in an elected office then wanting an audience with us, to come to us, to ask for us, to support them, and to ask for us to tell them what it is that we want. Purely by organizing. You don't have to pick up a phone and call anybody. All we have to do is register those numbers. Now, what you can do to help to build this, wherever you are, if you live in the suburbs, we're talking about something very fundamental of building this infrastructure first. And then we can talk about all of those things that are important, not to get sidetracked on that, but we can talk about all of those things that are important, from education to economics. But we can't even begin to talk about influencing public policy towards those issues until we have the power to dictate. So the first thing we want to do is to build the independent voting bloc. Now, I am asking you, and it's in the chat, to text if you are not in. And every time someone joins the text alert, I get an alert. Just put it up there just in case, so that you can see it. 1385. So text 10x10 to the number 909-1385. I want to say hello to all of those folks that are online, Debbie Green, and I saw Katie earlier. Those of you who are on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you go to our YouTube page there, please, and join our and become a registered subscriber there. There's no cost to it whatsoever. Just go and look for Mark Wallace or The People Show with Mark J. Wallace and register there, and then share, like and share that with others to join us. Now, I just want to say that with all of those things that we talk about, all of the issues that are important, from our local all the way to our federal, we must have power to change those things that you are frustrated about, those things that are important to enriching our communities at every level. In order to change those conditions, we've got to change how we approach this political process. And the way that we have to change how we approach this political process is stop aligning ourselves with someone who has announced that they're running for any office, and let's align ourselves together, and we can determine who would be announcing that they're running for any particular office. That is real power. Then we can determine public policy from those that we have determined to go to public office. That is where you have significant and real power. If you do not have that, then you and I will continue to just have these discussions, and we will continue to make incremental progress that we won't even be able to measure for our communities, from education to economics. Oh, yes, we'll have a few people that individually will do well. Individually, they will have some success, but we won't have a corporate success, meaning of our entire community, that we could have if we were to unionize ourselves together, unite ourselves together, and then we can have our own debates and discussions and strategy of how we move forward. And I guarantee you, if we do this, we will move our communities forward. All right, please text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385. And don't forget Thursday night at the Woodson Library at 95th and Halsted. We're going to be doing 5 o'clock. We're doing a Stop the Tift Grift with Tom Tresser from the Tift Illumination Project at 5 o'clock Thursday night at 95th and Halsted. You're going to learn all about tips and how those tips are ripping off our communities. I want to thank my friend Monroe Anderson for being here with me. Thank all of you for joining us every Monday night right here on the Monday night edition of the People Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio. Good night.